Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Speed Street Podcast. It is a very exciting week. It is race week. We are finally back. We have a motor racing event to look forward to on Fox on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. You've already heard it, so you can't miss it. I had to tell some people last night that IndyCar was indeed on television, so we are still fighting that fight, but I'm telling them that it's on Fox on Sunday. But here we are. It's going to be an awesome one. The Thermal Club. Now, I have not raced there before. This is a new racing event for me. I have tested there, but did not get to do the exhibition race there last year. So a little bit to learn, a little bit on the table there to discover for several other people out there as well. I'm sure some of the new drivers in the series. But it's good to be back. Good to be in race week. Gosh, it's been too long, and I know I've seen a lot of the comments. It's been far too long. I completely agree with you. But here we are. Chase, you went to an IndyCar test. At least you got a little bit of your IndyCar jollies excited for some activities out there at the Barber Motorsports Park. That was last week. We actually recorded before that test, so we can talk a little bit about the results from that test as well. Tell us how that was. How did it go down there?
Yeah, dude, just want to start off by saying race week, we are officially back. I am excited too. 65 laps this time instead of just 20. That's going to be fun for Thermal Club. But Barber, one of my favorite places in America, probably now. One of the weirdest racetracks of all time. We love it. Just a lot of history, a lot of good things there. The test itself was great. I got to catch up with a couple of drivers, catch up with some guys that do a lot of heavy lifting on the back end. A lot of the pit dogs were out there having a good time. Louis Foster saw me in his car when I was standing on, I don't know, I think turn T13. I was just standing out there. It was his view versus my view. He was happy to see me out there. I didn't get to go get a photo with him for being the mustache power rankings champion currently in IndyCar, but it would have been cool. Other than that, though, yeah,
great mustache.
He does. There's a lot of people talking right now saying that, like, if you race for RLL, like, you have to have a good mustache. Like, you have to do Bobby justice. You know what I mean? Like, you have to come out there hot with it.
Did you notice
it? But no.
Did you pick anything out from the test? Any exciting news items? Any conversations worth reporting to us?
Well, I will say this. I do know that Will Power passed the test with flying colors. He ended up being first in that test. So Will Power still out there getting it done. I did a lot of air guitar with Pato. Me and him, we would just see each other out there, just do this randomly at times. So that was fun. Talked to Joseph Newgarden about The Matrix. That was cool. Nice. He was locked in. Yeah, he loves that movie. And then aside from that, really just kind of observed the area, right? I really wanted to just kind of take in what a test day was like. Very different than what most fans would probably expect. And I will say that what I did learn was it's very quiet. It's not as intense as normal. And there were a few fans out there, though. I will give them credit. There were like maybe 3 or 4 people out there that were watching, diehard McLaren fans. So they were out there rooting on Pato at the test. But aside from that, I will say that I'm looking forward to doing more of those. And I hope the next one that I go to, you will be at, so that we can pass the test. And I'm also apparently the head coach of IndyCar now because I had a whistle. And I blew the whistle.
See that. Yeah. Big whistle guy.
Yeah, I'm like a coach now, dude. Here I am.
There you go. Yeah, well, that's we can talk a little bit about the results because we love diving into test results. We know how important those are and how they don't mean anything, but we're now in season, so at least it's something to read into, and I'm sure there's a story behind every lap time, and I think you'll see some results where you'll be like, oh my gosh, what happened? But guess what? It means nothing. So no points are awarded, no trophies are handed out. We're just doing recon. So there's a couple other news items as well that we can get to before we do. We're going to do our picks for Thermal. We're going to give you, like last year we did, basically just a top 3. We're going to give you the top 3 in no particular order, throw some picks in. Why not? And it was okay last year because I wasn't racing, but now that I am racing, we're still going to do it. It feels fine to do.
I like that.
Going to do some picks. But yeah, the results from Barber, Will Power was obviously fastest, and he wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. Will Power is on a mission this year to retain his Penske seat, I believe. I believe Will Power is fully focused on making sure that he still delivers. And I know that Will Power can do that. I think Will Power is still one of the fastest guys in our series. But anytime he's first, I guarantee we're going to know about it on the internet. And you know what? I respect. That's absolutely what you should be doing. So these were the combined lap times again, so morning and afternoon. But Will Power was fastest. Christian Rasmussen was second. Now, that team has had some speed at Barber before. ECR has been fast. Obviously, Renus was on the podium there at Barber before for them. And I believe he was on the pole there. Renus is very good at Barber.
That was 2 years ago?
Yeah, a few more than that. But yeah, Renus was good there. So I know that they've had a decent package there because it's a very high grip road circuit. Pato Award was third. Christian Lundgaard was fourth. David Malukas was fifth. Joseph Newgarden. Renus VK still popping up there. Devlin DiFrancesco. You know what? He's been throwing down some decent times, honestly. Devlin DiFrancesco's been doing a decent job recently. Alex Rossi, Graham Rahal, Scott McLaughlin, Marcus Armstrong, Callum Ilott, Nolan Siegel, Felix Rosenquist. Felix Rosenquist, who had quite a big shunt at the test. Apparently, he was flipping. It was wild.
Yeah.
Alex Rossi told me a little bit about it. So glad Felix is okay. Sad to see him have a big shunt there. Louis Foster, Jacob Abel, Robert Schwartzman, and dead last was Santino Ferrucci, which again doesn't mean anything.
Talented driver. Doesn't mean anything.
But once again, you see the whole field there really covered by a second. And again, not the whole field. If you missed kind of our mentioning of how the testing works, a lot of people used this test day, but teams like Ganassi, right, who are paired with Meyer Shank, they use it very cleverly. So they have a technical relationship. So technically, when Meyer Shank is testing at Barber, obviously all the Ganassi cars get that information as well because they're the same team, essentially. And when we test, our test will be at the Indy GP next week after thermal. We're testing there on the Thursday, I believe. And so Ganassi will be testing there. So that means that Ganassi and Meyer Shank then get 2 different tracks worth of information. But that's just how it works. You always just try to get as much information as you possibly can. And that's why they did it that way. But then most of the other teams who don't have technical partnerships, they were obviously deciding that Barber getting another day in before thermal is probably helpful. I mean, there's multiple ways to look at it. Do I wish I would have got another day in the car before thermal? Yeah, for sure. But we also, we're on the simulator 2 days in a row last week, so we've still been doing some work at thermal, still trying to figure out what we want there. And honestly, a test at Indy GP could also be helpful for many other places as well. And would be really good to win the Indy GP now, wouldn't it? I think that would be really nice. So
that would be incredible.
We're going to definitely try to be doing that one. But yeah, interesting test at Barber. And, again, sort of the usual suspects up front, some small surprises, but how will all those teams use that information this weekend? I'm very curious to see, really, does Alex Palou maintain his dominance? I mean, he literally kicked the crap out of everyone last year. He made everyone look like, honestly, amateurs. So,
but there was only 20 laps for the main event. So
yes,
we'll say that.
Just a sprint race, essentially. So a lot of strategy involved this time, a lot of pit stops, potentially more pit stops than we've seen in a road or street course lately. So it'll be very interesting.
Do you think tires are going to be that big of a deal here this time, Connor? Because I don't think that they were that big of a deal before because of the lap times we had. But I mean, with the simulation work that you've done and what you've seen thus far, what you've had in conversation, what do you think that we're really going to see now this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tire life was obviously big in the sprint race last year because Colton saved his tires at the beginning and then was able to use them at the end, but it still wasn't enough to win. Whereas Alex Palou was just pushing the whole time and he was fine. So some people struggled, some people were good. It is a different tire this year. The primary tire is a little bit different, but we also now have the red tire to use. And so the red tire will be, that'll be a new challenge for us there. Apparently, now again, we all like to think like this before the race weekend, but the DEG is going to be a lot, which means you could see I think without a doubt, it's a 3-stop race on fuel. You literally can't make it a 2-stop race. So it's a 3-stop race already. But if tires don't last, you could see 4 pit stops. I mean, you could see a 4-stop race, which I think would be really interesting. So I'm hoping for, a lot of deg. I think it'll be difficult on us as drivers for sure at this track because it's very high grip, high speed. But there will be a lot of deg here, according to information that we've got. And, there are people looking at what might a 4-stop strategy like? If you're doing 4 stops and just pushing the whole time, that's a lot of pit stops, a lot of work on the squads in the pits, but it could actually end up being good. So for some reason, I always even if we think that it's usually, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. Yeah, part of me really wants to see that happen because it would be a very, very interesting strategic race, and it would make it make it quite a lot of fun to watch. But we'll see, and hopefully the deg obviously increases overtaking. So yeah, we're definitely
nice.
We definitely got some deg to look forward to there, and it's going to be interesting to see who plays it best. Right now, Alex Palou is the guy to beat. We know he's the best out there. He dominated everything last year.
Especially according to Bob Pockris. He wanted to make sure that Dixon and Newgarden knew that after St. Pete.
So we'll get a little bit more into the thermal picks, but there's a couple other news items, not nude items, but news items that we need to discuss. Definitely not nude items. That would be a different type of program. But one thing that I found interesting, the Toby Sowery being hired as a reserve driver for RLL.
Right?
I don't know how that works. I really don't know how that works. I assume, Yuri Vips is still there too. So who gets the role there? Is it rock, paper, scissors? Are they being paid? I would love to know if they're being paid a salary to be there. That would be interesting.
Toby Sowery salary.
That would be frustrating to me because that's just a wild situation. But I hope, I do like to see teams integrating more drivers into their program. I don't think this is a bad thing. Let me clarify that. I think that's a great thing. I think Toby Sowery did an incredible job with his races that he got last year. Fantastic job. And obviously, did not have the budget to compete for any of the seats, that were available, which is the only reason you're going to get in. Sadly, we had to come up with something. Devlin had to come up with something. A lot of drivers, Stingray had to bring something to the table, and Toby obviously was not able to do that, or else I believe he would have been in the car. Same thing at Coyne too. So there's always reasons why guys like that don't end up, and sadly, it's usually financially. But good to see him still tied to the paddock. He was obviously racing in the Sebring 12-hour as well. Takuma Sato was also announced with RLL for the Indy 500. No surprise there. Takuma has a great relationship with Bobby and that group over there. So it'll be great to see him back. He's obviously still got it. Still got a lot of speed in him. He wants to go for another Indy 500 win, which is wild. So
shout out to Takuma.
Good to see him back. The Sebring 12-hour race was also happening over the weekend. Great. I mean, a lot of races to watch over the weekend too. I was watching racing from 10 a.m. on Saturday all the way through till Sunday at 5 when the NASCAR Cup race ended. So
did you sleep?
Oh yeah, I definitely slept. I did sleep.
That's good.
But man, it was cool to see so much racing on and see some sports car racing. The Sebring 12-hour is a great event. I think it looks like I might have a chance of doing some the endurance races next year, which would be a lot of fun.
Who won that one, by the way?
Huh?
Who won that one, by the way?
Penske. Penske once again.
Of course.
Penske won too. So
of course
they dominated, of course, as usual. And honestly, I will say something about that. And I talked to Alex Palou a little bit about this at the gym yesterday because Alex Palou finished third. He was on the podium at Sebring. But those two Penske cars, honestly, I know it's Penske and factory Porsche, but it almost looked like it wasn't even difficult. No other GTP car could even get close to them. So, and again, the BOP and sports car regulations, part of that is difficult as someone to watch because I think that those two cars were just purely faster than everyone else's cars.
It's a big playground out there, But
you know what? They deserve the win. They made no mistakes. They were the fastest. but I certainly know that that some of the drivers in the other cars or definitely had some interesting opinions on the speed of each vehicle. But hey, that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? They won the Rolex, they won Sebring. Congrats to them. And Penske Porsche's on it. So that was cool.
Give it to them.
One thing we also saw that I really wanted to talk about too, the Formula One race. The Formula One is back. A lot of conversation, and I don't know if Formula One talked to Mother Nature or if they had some sort of a meeting in the heavens about weather, but they could not have possibly got better craziness weather to generate interest in the race. I did not want to turn off it was 2 a.m. and I was still watching this race. It was very exciting, I've got to say, with the differing conditions, with the strategies. You had a car crashing before the start even. Isaac Hadjar definitely. Oh, that was brutal.
Heartbreaking. To see. I saw a video on Instagram with that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't get to watch much of it, but that's why I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it.
I mean, you know what? It's just the one thing that I will say about this event, because you had a car crashing before the start of the race, even, right? Because racing is hard.
Very true.
These guys, everyone will say in Formula One, you know, it's the best drivers in the world. Okay, you know, that's a debatable topic, but obviously it is the top level of motorsport. We all understand that. But if what happened at the beginning of this race happened in an IndyCar race, F1 Twitter would be going nuts about how everyone in IndyCar sucks. So I don't want to hear that. Yeah. I think that's absurd.
We're going to take the high road.
Racing is hard, no matter what category you're in. And we saw, you know, a car crash before the start of the race. You saw a car crash at the first lap of the race. You saw Carlos Sainz have some sort of a torque. I mean, realistically, in the rain, anything could happen like that. And as a driver, we want to blame everything inside of the car. So maybe there was a torque, some sort of shift issue, which it did look like for Carlos Sainz. He's not one to just lose it like that.
They're just trying to make some cool promos for the new movie. I think that's what's probably happening.
Yeah, but he had, you know, there were 3 or 4 cars already crashing in the first couple laps, and, you know, safety cars and things like that. The whole internet world is just so absurd, because I could see it now. It's like, if this happened at the beginning of an IndyCar race, if you had a couple cars crashing, you had early safety cars, oh my gosh, it would be, you know, oh, these guys suck, these people suck, this is why it's IndyCar, this is IndyCar. I was like, dude, this race didn't get going for like 30 minutes. Like, come on. I'm sorry, but yeah.
See, that's the difference though, Connor. We already know this. We can let them do all that stuff. We already know what's true here.
Yeah. Like, rain is hard. Completely understand that. It's a street course. It's hard. But yeah, like things can happen. These drivers are trying to put their best foot forward. They're trying to be the fastest drivers in the world. If you're at the top level, no matter if it's Formula One, IndyCar, you know, sports car, like you know, WEC, whatever it is, it's hard as a professional, and mistakes can happen. Oh my gosh, things can happen. But I wanted to say that, because I was like, man,
it's like, what a concept.
I could see how this could be, you know, shown another way. But anyway, I still enjoyed it. Having said that, I enjoyed it because I like to see these types of struggles. This is motorsport. Motorsport is hard, like I've mentioned 3 or 4 times already. And when you see the best drivers in the world going at it, and in the rain, and then it dries out, and then back to the rain, that is classic road course racing in multiple conditions. That is just so good. And I truly enjoyed watching it. It just felt like a proper motor race again, where all the drivers were doing some serious work. And
a lot of good instincts, on the fly movements. Yeah, I'm definitely probably, you know, I said I wasn't going to watch F1 until 2026 when Cadillac came, but I may check out some highlights of this one. I may do that.
It was good. Yeah, I mean, you know, Lando was incredible all day long. So was Oscar Piastri. I mean, McLaren already kind of giving driver team orders a little bit was a bit strange.
They might be the best.
They might be the best this year, yeah. But one thing, now, Chase, this is something that you'll know about. We obviously know the lucky dog, right? We know the lucky dog in NASCAR. We get your laps back.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to use this show to talk, and again, this is an IndyCar show. We're going to talk a little bit about Formula One. They allow the lap cars to just get their laps back anytime a safety car comes out, no matter where they are. It doesn't matter if the leader's in front and they're like, it's not a wave around, right? In IndyCar, which seems like a normal process. If you go a lap down, you got to work really hard to get it back. And sometimes that can happen. And if it does, awesome. You're back in the race. You can do that.
It's kind of real racing, you know?
Well, let's not go that far. Like F1 is real racing. Like, let's not go that far. But it's they don't have to deal with it that often, right? Because they don't have a ton of safety cars. They don't have these types of situations that often. So it's very funny to see them put into these situations where they're like, shoot, what do we do with these lap cars? Well, I assume we just let them back in the race, right? Which is hysterical. Huh?
I said, of course.
Yeah. So I just, I put a thread out about this because I just found it fascinating because in a normal like open wheel race that I would have seen, which again, normal being, I guess, IndyCar, but I would have thought the same thing in Formula One too. Like if you go a lap down, you got to get yourself into a position where if a safety car comes out, and the safety car picks you up and the leader's behind you, okay, you get the wave around. That makes sense. Now you're okay. But this was like, if the leader was there and there were as many lap cars as could be possible behind the leader, they just let them all get their laps back. Which again,
to me, that stinks.
I don't know if I like that because the leader had to work so hard to put them a lap down, right? You are dominating the day.
It's a part of a strategy, right?
You're taking people out of the race. You want to eliminate the competition, right? As a driver who's probably leading, you're like, I want to eliminate all these people from competition so that the race win becomes even if he's never going to battle them for the rest of the day. But even Oscar Piastri, who again deserved points, he had a great day all day long. But he went a full-on lap down, was in the grass for like 2 minutes, it felt like, and he just got his lap back, and then he scored points. And if I was Pierre Gasly or one of those drivers who was fighting in the points all day, and I had this car, they're like, all right, yeah, we got him out of the way. He made a mistake, which again, crazy mistake. It was in the wet, whatever. And then he's just kind of let back onto the lead lap, and then they catch up, and they're all there. I just found that to be
dude, that's where I draw the line, man. Like that's not what I'm here for. That's not what I'm trying. I feel like at that point, it's just more of pay. It's just pay to play at that point. Like it's like make it real. You know what I mean? Like if that happens to you in any other race, any other event, you're going down. And you have your rest of your race now, you're not racing for the lead. You're racing to get back to the lead lap, like you were saying. Yeah. That you have to be able to transition on the fly like that. You shouldn't just get the pat on the back right up where you're supposed to be. So, again, just another kind of coin in the bucket for how I feel.
But like what NASCAR does with the lucky dog, which is like the first car a lap down gets their lap back. Like I like that because obviously there's a lot more.
As far as you want to stretch it,
Yeah, but there's a lot more oval racing, and on oval racing it's different. But even on the road course races that they do, that happens. And look, something could happen to you early on in the race. You get to take advantage of this. You get your lap back. I do like that. I actually wish IndyCar had a lucky dog too, like where they
should at ovals.
Every yellow, the first car a lap down gets their lap back. I do think that would spice up the competition, but I just thought it was interesting that F1 will probably not have to deal with this at all for the rest of the year, but to watch it happen, to watch like 5 cars get their lap back and then eventually be right back in the race for points. Again, not bad because it's for racing, but it's also like it's a bit gimmicky because it's you went a lap down. You went a lap down on pace.
You're being modest.
And now, and even a car coming out of the pits, like you could make one of the Haas's got to make an extra pit stop and still come out. Like they got the wave around. They made a pit stop.
You're not helping this case of this modesty.
They took too long, and then they came out behind the safety car. And I was like, that would have been a huge team mistake on an IndyCar race. And so it was fascinating to see that. And I don't know if people, again, I don't have a problem with allowing lap cars to get out of the way of the leaders. Like that for sure. Like in IndyCar, that happens. In the last 20 laps on an oval, we clear the lap cars no matter where they are, but they go to the back. They don't get waved around. They go to the back of the field. So I feel like if something like that happens in the future, maybe we just put the lap cars to the back. But yeah, it was just interesting. I had to talk about that because, well, I have a podcast, but I just found that to be fascinating because we don't see that situation in F1 that often. And again, loved it for the racing because you want to get the lap cars out of the way, but to give them all their laps back and to get, some drivers that were fighting for points all day to then lose points to people who already had issues in the race. That was wild. That was wild.
That's the biggest part for me. It's just like you really stomp on the whole competitive aspect of what it is. And I mean, if it's your rules and that's what in your series, your rules are this, then it's like, well, you really can't argue with that because that's the way that they've built it out. But at the same time, it's just fan wise, I think we've learned with F1, most F1 fans are just going to kind of go with whatever they get. And that's that. And that's law. And then they're going to want that to be law for every other racing series, just like a NASCAR fan will want that to be law for every other series, and IndyCar the same. It's just understanding what you're watching when you're watching it, but you can also choose like, yeah, I don't think that's right, or yeah, I do like that. Either way, it's just perception's free, baby.
Yeah, I mean, this is purely my opinion, but it's just I've been in I've been in all these series of motorsport, and I've been under the FIA rule of F2 and been very close to F1 in my life. So like I've seen it, and yeah, it's just it was just really interesting to me because if I was one of the drivers that every time you see a lap car, you're like, that's good. I don't have to worry about that person anymore. You know what I mean? And in racing, you're like, got them out of the way. You know what I mean? The less people that you have to worry about racing, the better, right? The better chance you have at a good result.
No, I fully agree. And I mean, I think that's why I love that we have things kind of set up the way we do. I just want to say before we get going, I know we're not a NASCAR program, but I just want to say, shout out Josh Berry, proud, very proud.
They are.
Got the big dub really at Las Vegas, huge, and that was due to strategy right there all day. Joey Logano didn't want to pit. He did. Josh Berry wins the race. Wood Brothers back in action. Proud.
Yeah, it was good to see Josh Berry win. I enjoyed watching the NASCAR stuff over the weekend. It was an interesting cup race. I like the Las Vegas track. Honestly, I know that's weird for an IndyCar driver to say because obviously IndyCar does not have a great history there, but I've got to race NASCAR trucks there, and I enjoy it quite a lot. I wish. Honestly, and this is a very debatable topic, but it would be a great track for IndyCar to race on now.
Agreed.
But I know probably we're not going to go back there, which is fine.
It's a touchy subject, but I mean, you're not wrong. From a pure point, it is a touchy subject.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong at all because we know, and I know you and I know I've seen NASCAR races there in person and on television. It is a fantastic product, man. And that track just brings out some incredible moments. I am fully on board with it, and maybe in the future we can find a way to move forward and return. I think that would be cool for us.
It'll never happen, but and I'm okay with that. But it is a fun track to drive, and it was cool to watch the Cup race there. I think there was a lot of interesting strategies, a lot of different stuff going on, tires exploding, stuff like that. But yeah, good to see a different, really top three, like the top three with Barry and Suarez and Ryan Preece. That was kind of cool for NASCAR to have a bit of a shift up front. They've had the same winner 2 races in a row, so
get a little more parity now. Good to see a little stinking up the show.
Yeah, so that was cool. Big motorsport weekend, honestly, and yeah, I'm excited to get to thermal. Let's dive into thermal a little bit more here. We've covered all the news. We've covered all the small things. We have no guest this week, by the way, because we just wanted to preview thermal. We want to get into it. We're obviously going to talk to the winner, unless it's Alex Palou again. I already told Alex Palou we're not going to interview him twice in a row. So if Alex Palou wins 2 races in a row, we're going to find whoever finishes second or third or an interesting story from the race.
What if we found who finished last? What if we did that?
They might not have anything to say, though. Maybe they just got wrecked in turn 1. So I don't know. Yeah,
it could be interesting. But I am ready to talk thermal with you, and I know that the listeners probably want to hear about this. So again, a lot of changes this time around. Thermal, I don't know the exact mileage. I know it's over 3 miles, a little bit over 3 miles. 65 laps this time around. It's an actual points race this time around, so not the $1 million challenge. What can we expect to see going into this weekend, and what are you hearing in the garage right now?
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think that the best way to put it, it is going to be a fact-finding mission for the beginning, essentially. And again, it's on all of our practices are on FS1. So I believe nothing on FS2 this weekend. So you can be tuned in. Obviously, cable. Yes, we know that. Yeah. So
and no Indy NXT, by the way, right? There's no Indy Next.
Just IndyCar. Yeah. We're the only people there, so it's going to be a little bit odd. But yeah. The first practice is 6:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. FP2 is 1 p.m. Eastern on FS1. 5 p.m. Eastern qualifying on FS1. And then the warm-up is going to be awful for us. I mean, it's at 8 a.m. for us on local time, but 11 a.m. Eastern time, we're going to be cranking up the engines and getting after it. But what is also very different is the fact that the warm-up, we're in the desert, essentially, for thermal. So the warm-up is going to be about like 63 degrees, but the race, by the time we get to noon local time, 3 p.m. Eastern, it's supposed to be almost 90 degrees. So it'll be about almost a 30-degree shift in weather. So that will also make things very interesting. You're going to have people feeling like heroes in the warm-up, and it could be completely different for the race because it's going to be so hot. So
how are we setting up for that? I mean, I guess that's the big question, right? It's just like, how do you combat that? Because I know that in that terrain, in that territory, you have a lot of that fluctuation.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough, but you just have to basically try to think ahead and try to not outthink yourself, but just put things in perspective, because a nice cool track in the desert, I'm sure, will be super fast, and the warm-up is going to feel great, and maybe the red tires even last longer in the warm-up than they will in the race. So that's going to be our time to test that as well. We get a little bit of time on the red tire, obviously, in FP1, but it is a big question on how long the tires will last. So the warm-up is going to be super important for us to use. But with a 30-degree temperature shift, that's going to be... I mean, that's going to be wild. So
might require a little more than just tires.
Yeah. So it's going to be cool, though. I think I'm going into this weekend with an open mind. I know there are people who are still upset about this weekend, but we have an IndyCar race to watch. Okay, this is a full championship race. This is a race that, honestly, looking at the strategic side, is actually quite interesting because of how long the track is. Because of how the fuel windows are, and because of how the tires could degrade. You saw some people degrading so aggressively fast on tires last year, even though it was a different tire, different car, essentially lighter car. Now we've got a heavier car, different tire, which the heavier car will put more energy into the tire. And you've got the red tires to use. So you've got more things introduced into the elements. You've got a lot of people trying to rebound from St. Pete. This is an official race. This race is for sure a difficult overtaking track. We already know that, but we did see it as a possibility last year when the tires started to go off. So it's not impossible. We saw Colton Herta launching crazy moves on people in the race last year, the exhibition race last year. So I know that, it's not going to be a big spectator event. There's several people coming. There were tickets available, obviously, but just give it a chance on TV. It's still an IndyCar race. We have to remember that. I think it's completely worth watching. It's a part of our championship story. It's a part of the 17 race calendar, and I'm excited about it. I hope it ends up being a good race. I think we have a great opportunity to do well there because our car. Roman was quick in it last year, but they had a lot of things they had to figure out. And Roman also got absolutely hammered and destroyed in the first corner of the race last year. So they didn't really get to. They didn't get a ton of information from race situations, but it's an exciting weekend. Yeah, and
wasn't there a lot of
all the sessions on FS1 too is great. Like that's just boom, FS1 practice, lock it in, and then you had over 3 million people watch the NASCAR race on FS1, so people can find it. There are a lot of people there ready to watch FS1, and we can get yourself teed up for a great race.
No, it's going to be fun. Wasn't there a lot of pit road? There was a lot of pit road action at Thermal last year, from what I remember, correct?
No, there were no pit stops. So
there were no pit stops whatsoever.
Yeah, no pit stops last year.
Just they had a challenge. They had a challenge out there.
I'm
thinking about St. Pete. I'm thinking about St. Pete.
No, there was no pit stops at Thermal last year. It was just all.
That's huge. Then this is a whole new element. So how is that being factored into strategy going forward into the weekend? Now that is going to be required.
Well, I mean, Thermal actually had to pave a longer pit lane for us. So last year, one of the reasons why they didn't do pit stops is because the pit lane was actually too small. It was not long enough. So Thermal has paved a full proper pit lane for everyone this time. So that'll be different. This is
a brand new race, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a proper race, proper IndyCar race, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So let's get into some picks. Let's do some top 3 picks. I'll do one, you do one, and again, this is top 3 in no particular order. We like to put up a little graphic maybe to see who actually ends up predicting the right top 3. But I am gonna preface my picks with the fact that the results last year were very widespread, and there were only 12 cars in the final race as well. So didn't get to see a ton of people. There might be some sleepers that we didn't know about that just didn't get a chance to put a good qualifying lap together or a heat race together. So Chase, I'll do one, then I'll give you one, and then we'll just do a top 3. So my first pick, obviously, this is easy, but it's Alex Palou. Alex Palou, I don't see how he doesn't win this race unless something crazy happens. I would like to beat him, obviously. That would be the goal. But with that team, what they had last year, with everything that they've got going for them right now, I don't see how he doesn't win. But that's the easy pick. That's like the minus money pick. Like he's got to be. I bet Alex Palou's odds, if there were odds for Alex Palou to win this weekend, he would almost be minus money.
He probably will be. So, I mean, it's going to be tough, like just as you were saying, and I don't want to get too deep into that part of it, but let's keep it vague. If I'm looking at a guy, you talked about him already, he was chopping things up. I'm looking at Colton Herta this weekend. I think that Andretti having some test time out there, I mean, even Marcus as well was out there doing some stuff. He was cutting up. I think he finished P1 at the test.
They were testing. That's right. There were a couple cars that did get to test, so that they will also have a good amount of more information than a lot of other folks.
Prima was one of those teams, but Colton Herta is probably going to be the guy that I'm looking at heavily this week. He's been in the news a lot lately. Him and Alex both have been in the news a lot lately, not just in the IndyCar circles, but the whole F1 thing that they put up with Cadillac. He knows that he's got to step up and shine. Andretti is always ready to battle, I feel like, at these newer tracks or these different type of tracks with late braking, things like that. So I got to look at Colton to be probably my first choice going into this weekend.
I like that. I think you're close to right, but I'm going to go with the, what's funny? Normally, I think you could pick Joseph Newgarden in a situation like this, but Joseph struggled last year at Thermal. He struggled in the race. Scott McLaughlin was the next best guy, though. And I think after seeing Scott qualify on pole in St. Pete and just be on the wrong strategy for the race, I think Scott has to be a pick here. And I'm going to go with him. I think Scott is still going to take the fight to Alex. I don't know how close he can make it, but it's going to be Scott for me as well for my second pick.
I like it. And I mean, honestly, we're going to have these overlap at times, and this is where it overlaps. Scott McLaughlin was my next pick as well. So that's one that you and I are both going to be aligned on. And you pretty much hit the nail on the head with all of those points there. He's dialed in. I saw him a little bit at Barber. I mean, dude, I feel like he's more focused in on this season, this year, than I've ever seen him just be so dialed in. Like, he's ready, dude. So I'm looking for him to be another big contender, at least on the podium at the end of the race.
So this is an interesting one, and I'm for my third pick.
I'm curious.
I'm going to go with a driver that I think I might have actually just picked. I'm making sure that I didn't do this, but I'm making sure I think I'm actually going to do it, which I don't mean to do this, but I kind of do. I'm going to pick the exact same podium as last year. I'm doing Felix Rosenqvist. I think Felix Rosenqvist, with the benefit of his new information from Ganassi, I think that will be a very, very strong one. I was in between Marcus Armstrong or Felix for this one, but I think Felix has a chance to be on the top three. And I know now this is in no particular order. I picked them in the exact same podium order as last year, but I'm really confident in those guys. I think when you look at the information that we've got, when you look at how fast Felix was there last year, but now he's got Alex Palou's setup sheets to look at. He's got Alex Palou's data to look at. I just see Felix being in contention here. So I like those three, and honestly, I'm not upset about it. I know people can be like, oh, that wasn't very creative. I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at what I think is going to be really strong, and those three are what I'm going with.
No, I love it, and the energy is right there. Fro is the just miss list. He's fourth. He's the honorable mention for me. But for my third pick, I want to go old dog, new tricks. Scott Dixon.
Okay.
We saw Scott. There was a spirit, I feel like, that is reignited in that man this year. And it's another year now to try to go for that 7. And what better way to get started than to get a win here at Thermal? He's got some data collected. They do say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I beg to differ because I think this dude is just a timeless dog. I think that's who Scott Dixon is. And you talk about the data that, was taken with Meyer Shank, with Ganassi and Andretti and all that kind of getting mixed into a pot. Some of that can be extracted in different ways. And so I think right now what we're about to witness this season, and at least what I hope to see, is kind of an evolution in Scott Dixon's game to where, you've just kind of had things run a certain way for so long, but also now understanding, okay, kind of like when Lightning McQueen had to get on a simulator in Cars 3. You know what I'm talking about? It's kind of like that. That's what's going down right now. So I think that we can see Scott on the podium, at least here in Thermal Club this weekend. That was a big car that just rode by, a lot of revved engine outside. They were with me on the Scott Dixon pick. 100%. Well,
he definitely he found himself causing a bit of controversy last year, so it'll be nice to see him actually get a full race in if that does happen. But we obviously want to have a great weekend too. We hope you guys enjoy this weekend, and we will obviously be talking to a driver next week on the show. I don't know. Once again, next week, I will be doing the show from the simulator. So you will see me in my simulator pod.
When are you going to get in it?
I'm just sitting in like a little cave, like a little box. It's actually it's just a rectangle. Thankfully, I'm in California now, so I don't have to do the show from a small cave. But we will be back on the simulator. After Thermal, we are going straight all the way across the United American colonies, all the way to Charlotte for a day on the simulator, and then straight back to Indy for a test day at the Indy GP. So we're finally in it now. We're finally busy, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But with that, let's take a quick break before we jump into the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week.
The greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. Who will make up the field?
All right, so this week we will have a great Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week. Welcome to an incredible segment that we love so much, a segment that we need to make T-shirts about, a segment that we need to continue to dive into. But this week, the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week comes from the year 1935. We went very, very deep back into the history books once again. The 1935 Indianapolis 500, won by Kelly Patillo, who I believe we did talk about once before.
Dude's named Kelly.
Yeah, this week we went with the 29th place finisher, Bob Sal. Bob Sal finished 29th, and I did find some information about Bob. So Robert Sal Jr. was an American race car driver. Sal was the Eastern Big Car Champion, which I don't know what that means, in 1933.
Big Sal.
And again, Pretty cool. So in the 1935 Indy 500, he drove a radical front-wheel drive Miller chassis powered by a Ford V8 engine. Sal was primarily a big car racer, and later he became NASCAR's Eastern Field Manager. Interesting.
I got to look up the history of big car racing.
Yeah, maybe that's stock car racing. I don't know.
Well, there's a story about big cars. So a couple years ago, I went to, I think you were there. You were at the LA Clash of the Coliseum with NASCAR. I ended up bringing one of these guys that I had watched on social media. He did a lot of really weird, different videos. I got him to the race to check it out. And when he got there, he looked down. This dude does not watch NASCAR much, but he would wear the old, like the gear and stuff. He was in it like that. He looks down. He's like, man, these cars are kind of like normal size cars. They're not really big, dude. I was like, what did you think? And he was like, I thought these cars were like giant cars, like just ready to just wreck. And dude, I'm just like, no, man. Like, big so maybe that's the big car series, these gigantic cars. So we'll just look at it like that. Probably not, but could be.
Our producer Bobby has sent us some information that says big cars are sprint cars. That's an old term for it. So good to know. Sprint car.
I'm gonna start calling them big cars again.
Bob, I like big cars as well, honestly. Again, I love finding drivers like this. Bob Sal won Indy 500. That's all he had. The 1935 Indianapolis 500. That was it for Bob Sal. So pretty cool to find those drivers who just got to make one start. So there we have it. We appreciate you guys once again. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to all the podcast channels, whether that's Spotify, Apple, Google, who knows, Mars, the moon, wherever you're listening. Subscribe up there too. We appreciate you folks for being here. Next week's show is going to be great when we talk about this event. Again, Fox this weekend, not hard to find. 3 p.m. Eastern. The Fox graphics are going to be much better. The Fox live timing and scoring, all the stuff that they're going to have, all the TV elements are going to be much, much better this weekend.
And you can watch it with Speed Street gear too, with Dirty Mo. Dirty Mo has Speed Street gear now.
There is Speed Street merch available, and we appreciate those who have ordered that stuff. I was wearing a Speed Street shirt yesterday. They are very fashionable. Please continue to support that. That helps us a lot. And yeah, we appreciate you being here as always. We will see you next week on the Speed Street Podcast. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.